Here's 10 recommendations of books to get you out of reading slump. Hello, and welcome to another bookish video from me, Johanna, me, my dog and books. Today I've got 10 books would get you out of reading slump. I've got thriller, contemporary fiction, graphic novel, maybe even a horror. But let's get stuck in. First up, for any dark thriller fans, is Chris Carter. So he's written a series of books. It's the Robert Hunter series. So Robert Hunter's a detective. Book number 1. So I think you could probably jump, like some sort of detective series, you could probably jump in wherever, but you kind of miss the kind of build up of the character. In the Crucifix killer, body is found with a strange double cross carved into their neck, which is apparently the signature of a psychopath known as the Crucifix killer. But Detective Robert Hunter knows that can't be the case because 2 years ago, said killer was put in prison, was he not? Chris Carter has an amazing way of writing really dark characters, plot lines, short chapters, bingeable. This is why most of his books now say as addictive as a TV box set. I think we're up to book 9 or 10. I'm working my way through them. This is book, I accidentally started at The Night Stalker when I finished, and I read it. I think that's book 3 or 4. When I read it, I was like, oh, this is so good. I would recommend Chris Carter for fans of Karen Slaughter, Sam Holland, Jennifer Hillier. That kind of really dark, it's graphic. It's not for the faint-hearted. And I bought this one second hand. Can we feel sadness for this sticker that I still can't fully get off yet? The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I'm a massive Taylor Jenkins Reid fan. Her new book Atmospheres just came out and I've got it, I've not read it yet. She has an amazing ability to write really strong women characters that will be set around era or a topic. Like in this one, it's old classic Hollywood, and Carrie Soto is back. It's tennis, and Atmosphere, it's the 1980s astronauts, right? So even if there's topics I'm not that interested in, Taylor Jenkins Reid makes it when I am. Now, the less you know about this book going in, the better. All you need to know is that Evelyn Hugo, much older now, she's a reclusive Hollywood icon, but she's now ready to tell the truth about her glamorous and scandalous life, and she chooses Monique. She chooses an unknown magazine reporter to tell her story to. All of that you kind of learn, and you hear about obviously her lifestyle, the glam and glitz of old 1950s Hollywood, and there's twists in here that I never ever saw coming. I would adore seeing this as a movie adaptation. I don't know if it probably has been optioned. Let me know in the comments if you know. This was my first Taylor Jenkins Reid, and it made her become an auto-buy author for me. I was like gripped. I also recommend, I think maybe I've read it twice then. I'd recommend checking out an audio if you do enjoy audiobooks. This one is by an auto-buy author for me. This also was the first book I read by this author, and have since read 2 more of her books and have one from her back catalogue to read. And I will literally buy any book she writes. It is Tiffany McDaniel, and this was the first book I read, which was on the savage side. So this, I think, was technically her second book. Her first book is Betty. Trauma filled. More so than this. And this is such a unique book to describe, and I think it seems to interweave sort of different themes. I mean, look, can we just adore? Can we just adore? Right, but at the top it says 6 women, mothers, daughters, sisters gone missing. So we've got 2 twin sisters, Arcade and Daffodil. They're like a couple of fiery redheads, born a minute apart, and they form an unbreakable bond, almost brought together through their grandmother's stories. Their grandmother, is it Mimo? Amazing character. And from this you'll see they kind of spend time together in their own worlds, in an old sort of, is it a burnt out? Well, it was an abandoned 1950s convertible, right? and they spend time together where they just disappear into their imagination, desperate for a level of escapism, but no matter how hard they try, they can't escape the generational ghosts that haunt their family. They're kind of left to fend for themselves in the shadows of a rural Ohio town, and the two sisters just cling to each other as like just reinforcing that unbreakable bond. But then we're like years later and the sisters are wrestling with the memories of their earlier life, especially when a local woman is found dead in the river, and soon more bodies are found floating in the river and the killer is circling closer. And this is where you see Arcade's desperate desire to keep her and her sisters safe. As you can see, it's really difficult book to kind of try and describe. It hooked me from the beginning. It says specifically here, drawing from the true story of women killed in Chillicothe, I don't know if that's how you say it, Chillicothe, Ohio, acclaimed novelist and poet Tiffany McDaniel has written a moving literary testament and fearless elegy for missing women everywhere. And this explains how beautiful Tiffany's writing is. There's also, I'm not going to say what like this is like, oh, this book had my heart. The year I read it, not last year, but the year before, I think it was. This is my favourite book of the year. There's also a track, I think by Blondie, that is referenced in this book. And when I was reading certain scenes and it was referenced, I'm not even going to tell you because I don't want spoilers. I listened to that song on repeat, and now I can't think of that song without thinking about this book. Tiffany McDaniel's ability to create a sense of place, women's relationships, be it siblings or friends, or like, is just utterly outstanding. I can't recommend this enough. Then if you're wanting something maybe a little less tense, I highly honestly, this is the kind of book that I would absolutely get you out of slump. It's How to Kill Men and Get Away with It. This includes one of my favourite characters, Kitty Collins. This is her here, and it's kind of like, I don't know if anyone's read Sweet Pea. It's kind of like Sweet Pea without the lusty bits. If that makes sense. If you've not read Sweet Pea, this will mean nothing. We meet Kitty Collins, friend, lover and killer. And it kind of starts and pretty quickly you're grabbed in. So from Kitty's point of view, he's still following me, this guy from the nightclub. He won't leave me alone. And then it goes, I hadn't intended to kill him, but I wasn't sorry despite the mess I made, because he kind of deserved it. And that's where our addiction for like getting rid of the bad men came from. And there's a line here that I quite like. It says, I've got a taste for revenge and quite frankly I'm killing it. See, if you just want pure escapism with a badass female character full of rage and revenge for all the bad men in the world, we know who we're talking about. She is utterly delightful. Also the cover, come on now, but I think this was Katie Brent's first book, so there is a sequel to this. And then I think there's a third one coming. So honestly, so bingeable, so much fun. And I defy you to read this and not fall in love with Kitty Collins. She definitely has main character vibes. And of course I can't not recommend, with my own love of horror, a horror book to get you out of reading slump. And it had to be Grady Hendris, The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. Grady Hendris is an auto-buy author for me, and he does this amazing blend of humour and horror, as well as like social commentary, and often kicks back to a particular era and time. This one is set in the 1990s in the South. So like there's a bit of a giveaway in the heading, and then it involves a book club and possibly a vampire. Can we adore? But honestly, I love this so much. There's also like, it's a nice floppy book, right? So in this book, we've got a main character called Patricia. She's a southern gal living a southern life, the stereotypical life. And she feels like her life is quite small in this small town. You know, her husband's a workaholic, her teenage kids are living their own life, so she kind of feels a bit alone and isolated. Mother-in-law needs constant care, and she always just feels so behind in her non-stop to-do list. So her life is just pretty weighty, and she feels like she doesn't have purpose other than pretty much looking after everybody else. And that's where the only thing keeping her sane is her close-knit little book group of Charleston women united in their love of true crime. firstly, I wanted to join that book group. And then this guy, James, walks into their life, and it's 1993. And he makes her, and quite a few others in the book group and her like circle of close friends, feel things they've never felt for a long time, feel valued. It's just got an air of like making you feel good about yourself and needed. But when kids in the other side of town start to go missing, her and a few of her true crime book grippers start to wonder if he's connected. So the question comes, is he Brad Pitt or Ted Bundy? And they need to find out. Or something much worse. There is so much in this book that is commentary on Southern women in the 90s and misogyny and patriarchy, book groups, women's role in society, a charming man coming in. There's also a scene in here in the attic that I will literally never forget. So with Grady Hendris, I would say really accessible horror, humorous. He can have me going 1 minute and laughing out loud the next, but he just packs so much in. It's so unique. I love this. I would also love to see it as a movie adaptation. I think it would be amazing. So if you're looking for bingeable read, for me, this is one of Grady Hendris. Then from dark horror to contemporary fiction, we've got, I mean, this is a second-hand copy. I hate these stickers. Anyway, this is about bingeable reads, not reading X. Frederick Bachman, an auto-buy author for me. He's the author who wrote A Man Called Ove and Britt Marie Was Here, two of my favourite of his. But I thought I'd pick this one because Beartown is part of a trilogy and it's quite different in his writing style and storytelling in comparison to like Britt Marie Was Here and Man Called Ove. And it's phenomenal and utterly bingeable. So Beartown is a small town in a large forest, and it's a pretty tight-knit community. For a large part of the year, through the winter, etc., it's covered in a thick blanket of snow, and the kind of environment that either brings a community together or pulls them apart. A big part of this community is the ice hockey team, and as a small town that, you know, can quite easily start to kind of lose its vibrancy because of industries like jobs and all that kind of stuff, you know, the usual kind of small town vibes that can happen as society progresses. It seems to be on an upward trajectory, and that's because the ice hockey team are like raising the game, and they have some great players in their team, like young players who are really like making their mark. I'm not an ice hockey fan. You don't need to be. I'm not the least bit interested. So don't let that put you off if you're not an ice hockey fan or know anything about ice hockey. This kind of bright new future for this small town, Beartown, is put into jeopardy due to one single brutal act. Divides the town. And then you have two camps, part of the town that think this should all be hushed up and forgotten, and those who demand to seek justice. And everyone is on one side or the other. That's all I'm going to say. Go in, knowing no more than that. This is gripping. Maybe check content warnings. He just creates such a claustrophobic, stifling atmosphere of this sort of dying town and what happens to this close-knit community after a particular incident, as well as beautifully creating and developing characters. Now this is book 1. I can't remember the names of book 2 and 3. I'll put it in the description. I've read all 3, and you know how sometimes you like the trilogy, there's always one that you like, but all of them. If you have not read Beartown, get it on your TBR ASAP. And as an absolute thriller lover, I've obviously mentioned Chris Carter. I can't not give you another, which probably borders on a wee bit of spooky, maybe. It is Riley Sager, of course. I read all of Riley Sager's books. I love pretty much all of them. But the first one I read is still, like, if you need to get out of a slump, pick up Home Before Dark. Oh, it's kind of like a book about a haunted house in a haunted house. It's the worst description ever. So we start with 25 years ago. Maggie and her parents moved into a Victorian estate called Banbury Hall. They spent 3 weeks there before fleeing in the middle of the night. And her dad recounts the whole experience in a memoir, which became like a worldwide phenomenon. So we've got haunted house, books, creepy. Maggie might have been too young to remember most of this, right? But she pretty much does not believe anything her dad has written in this book, because she doesn't believe ghosts exist. And in modern day and in present time, she is back at Banbury House and is beginning to believe there might be some truth to the fiction. That's all you need to know, right? And so in the book you have bits of her dad's memoir, and then you have her telling her story of being back in Banbury Hall. I really want to reread this. This grabbed me from the very beginning. It's so clever, it's super twisty, and this is why I think it's like a weird hybrid of very accessible horror, kind of ghost story, haunted house, and thriller. If you like the likes of The Haunting of Hill House sort of idea, check this out. I adored it, and it's the reason Riley Sager became an auto-buy, because I'm like, devoured it. Another thriller, which is maybe more dystopian speculative fiction than psychological thriller. I can't have a list of get yourself out of reading slump recommendations without mentioning John Mars. Now, he does 2 types of books, more psychological sort of domestic thrillers and dystopian speculative sort of fiction. If I had to choose, I'd go for the speculative fiction, and this is one of my favourites. It's The Marriage Act, and the whole premise is about, like, what if marriage was the law? Would you disobey? So it's like near future Britain, and there's a right-wing government in play. I'm kind of like, is that near future Britain or is that now? Anyway, and this government believe that the only thing to fix society's wills is the sanctity of marriage. And so they actively encourage marriage as the norm and kind of punish those that remain single or don't get married. I'll not be able to. So in true his dystopian book style, it's got like multimedia. So there's like paid ad propaganda from the government. So that's like a social media ad. It said, about to upgrade to a smart marriage but don't want to replace your existing ring with a mandatory wearable tech. So this is where he cleverly weaves in so like Black Mirror-esque tech into this whole universe, because there are 4 couples in this book, so you have different POVs, and they're about to discover how difficult a relationship can be when the government is monitoring and supervising you. So imagine in these homes they have an Alexa type device, and that kind of monitors every word and every minor disagreement, and when there maybe is anything that suggests the relationship and the marriage might be going through a little rocky patch, they send in, is it relationship counsellors? What you should do if you suspect your friend's marriage is in trouble. Do's and don'ts. Help Britain to build back better. I mean, there's so much, like, so you have multiple POVs, short chapters, multimedia, a terrifying Black Mirror-esque concept, and it's so bingeable. It's both really tense and terrifying at the same time, because you're reading this going, absolutely, like, the government could do that tomorrow. And throughout you have their propaganda and like influencers who are like selling the concept of the Marriage Act and how, and the benefits, you know, like a National Health Service, you get perks if you're married, yada yada. Terrifying, bingeable, and an utterly chilling page turner. Then my last 2, I have a graphic novel and then one dark thriller from a auto-buy author as well. To start with a graphic novel, right, off kilter from everything else I've been telling you. This is Hyperbole and a Half. Unfortunate situations, flawed coping mechanisms, mayhem and other things that happened by Ali Brosh. I discovered this, I think, in the early days of maybe COVID, right? And it's honestly, there's so much in this. This is Ali Brosh's life, right? I mean, I'm just going to read you this bit because it makes me laugh, right? It says, this is a book I wrote because I wrote it. I had to figure out what to put on the back cover to explain what this is. I tried to write a long third-person summary that would imply how great the book is and sound vaguely authoritative, like maybe someone who isn't me wrote it. But I soon discovered that I'm not sneaky enough to pull it off convincingly. Right, so that's that bit there. And then it says, some might say this book is full of stories. Could be claimed that this is more pictures than the dictionary. It is a great book. So I decided to make a list of things that are in the book. Pictures, words, stories about things that happened to me, stories about things that happened to other people because of me, $8 billion, and then there's an asterisk, right? And it says, these are lies, perhaps I've underestimated my sneakiness. Stories about dogs, and the secret to internal happiness, which is also asterisked here. This made me laugh out loud. It made me quite emotive because this author struggles with depression, but I love this bit. It says, it includes stories about her rambunctious childhood, owning a mentally challenged dog, and a moving comic account of her struggles with depression. I wouldn't normally say, like, definitely read this book about depression. It's hilarious, but it is. And honestly, I could reread this numerous times. There is another one after this, but this is our first debut. Highly, highly recommend. Honestly, like, you could binge this in a sitting. Then last but not least is pretty much any book by Lucinda Berry. Okay, so she's very active in TikTok, so if you're on TikTok, definitely check her out. She writes really dark sort of psychological thrillers, and honestly, I think I've loved pretty much every one that I've read. I've still got a back catalogue of them. So many of them are available on like Kindle Unlimited or are normally in Kindle deals, so I would check them out. So I was like, which one would I say was totally bingeable? I mean, most of them pretty much are, but I would say Saving Noah is one of my favourites in that it still stays with me because of the subject matter. It's pretty dark, so check the content warnings. But you follow a mother who's trying to come to terms with the fact that her son is just coming out of juvenile detention. I can't remember how long he's been in, like a year or 6 months or something like that, because he was found guilty of, I think he was a swim coach, inappropriate things with kids. So that there is a very challenging topic, but it was such an interesting insight into how a mother deals with that when that is her son and the fallout of that and kind of how they got there. That's all I want to say. It's dark, as you can imagine, with the subject matter. Absolutely engrossing. I thought Lucinda Berry dealt with this topic really well, often in these types of circumstances. Normally my head jumps to, understandably and quite rightly, the victim of these crimes. So it was a really interesting insight to look at how the mother of the child, who there is no question in the book, he did it, and it's exploring his release from juvenile detention and what that means, and the kind of parent-child relationship. It is utterly gripping. It is, as you can imagine, very dark, but Lucinda Berry has an amazing ability to write absolutely bingeable books of a whole range of different types of thrillers, normally pretty dark, as you can tell, with really dark characters. So I highly recommend this. There's other few that I've read, which is Pretty Child, I think, Phantom Limb, and a few others. I'll put them here. So if the topic maybe of Saving Noah is maybe something that you don't want to delve into, check out any of these as well, because I really enjoyed them, and I'm like this on my Kindle. I defy it not to get you out of a reading slump. So that there, friends, apart from the Lucinda Berry's, which I don't have in physical format, all the books I would recommend for getting you out of a reading slump. If you've read these and would like any more recommendations, let me know in the comments. I will be happy to help, and others will probably help too. In addition, if you've got any books that you're like, absolutely recommend this as the kind of book to get you out of a reading slump, let me know. And if you like these kind of recommendation videos, let me know in the comments and I'll definitely do more. So thanks for watching, for commenting, for liking. And if you got this far and don't know what to say, give me a thumbs up emoji. And I'll catch you up in the comments. And if you don't already, please do subscribe. And I look forward to sharing more bookish videos with you very, very soon. Cheerio!